Welcome to Point Taken, where MST personalities are currently reevaluating their decisions in life after seeing the contracts handed out in the NBA. I'm your host, Akhil Ganesh, and it's an oddly busy sports week for the summer. The U.S. women's national team continues its run of dominance, Wimbledon is underway, the MLB All-Star Game is around the corner, and the entire NBA just exploded. But before we get to the game, we've got to have players, and for that, we've got a familiar face and some fresh blood on the show. So let's see who can rise to the occasion, and we'll start with that familiar face on Point Taken, Morgantown's favorite son himself, Neel Madhavan. Welcome back.
I'm 1-0 on Point Taken so far. I'm looking forward to staying undefeated today.
All right, we'll see if you can pull it off. But next, it's her first time on MST, Tina Iordanou. How are you feeling being out here?
Feeling pretty confident, like someone else I know. Oh yeah, a listener of the U.S. women's national team yesterday.
Obviously a big win for the U.S. women's team. We'll get to that later. But finally, another fresh face on the show, Yousef Nasser. You ready to take on the challenge?
I am. Guys, this news just came in. Kawhi Leonard still has not made a decision. We're July 3rd.
And we will probably be waiting for a very long time. But as for the show here, the format's pretty simple. We'll have 3 questions in our first round, and points will be awarded by me to the person I think has the best argument. After those 3, we'll knock out one of our lovely contestants and head to a showdown round with one final question. And today, there felt no better place to start than with whatever in the name of Jerry West just happened in the NBA. A cavalcade of deals came flooding out with quite a few shockers, including Jimmy Butler being dealt in a sign and trade to the Miami Heat, D'Angelo Russell getting the same treatment but heading to Golden State, and Al Horford signing with Philadelphia. Yousef, I'll have you lead things off, and I'll keep this very simple. Which agreement since Sunday has baffled you the most?
I'm baffled by the fact that the Brooklyn Nets, were able to actually seal the deal on Kevin Durant. Guys, you have to remember where this team came from. This is a team that traded all of its assets. 3 years ago, they had guys like, you talk about Sean Kilpatrick, Randy Foye, guys like that playing key roles on their team. They had no draft picks. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, picks that would have been theirs, they're on the Celtics, and they were able to turn this thing all the way around by winning on the margins. The fact that they were able to close the deal, build a culture, getting guys like Joe Harris, D'Angelo Russell, who was traded for Kevin Durant, as well as guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, I think it's incredible the fact that the Nets were able to actually seal the deal and able to make sure that they got Kevin Durant.
Absolutely, it's been an incredible turnaround on paper for the Nets. But Neil, who do you have?
Well, at first I was also really puzzled by D'Angelo Russell to Golden State. I mean, he just did not fit in with the ethos there. And honestly, when I saw that he was just going to be used as trade bait pretty soon, whether that be before the trade deadline in the next couple of months or before Klay Thompson gets back during the regular season, that wasn't surprising. But for me, Jimmy Butler to Miami, I mean, I was under the assumption that Jimmy Butler wanted to play for a contender. I mean, Miami, the roster they have, the pieces they had to give up to clear cap space to get him, I mean, Miami is looking at maybe the mediocrity, at least next season and perhaps the season beyond that. And Jimmy Butler turns 30 in September. I mean, he's still in his prime, but if he wants to win, Miami is not a place where he's going to win right away.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially when you consider how long it took to clear out that cap space. But Tina, who do you have as your biggest surprise of this free agency period?
I'm going to go with the New Orleans Pelicans. I mean, David Griffin has done something amazing. About 3 months ago, AD was basically begging his way out of New Orleans, goes to the Lakers. They get in a slew of players, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, very young guys that honestly have not hit their ceiling yet, and you get a ton of first-round draft picks to come in to kind of build your team for the future. I think it's even important to know that both those guys are going to be fighting for max deals, so they have a bit of edge to them. And then obviously getting Zion Williamson, you kind of create a situation here where you don't have to put the full load on him. He doesn't have to play 40 minutes a game. And let's even go into free agency. I think the steal of free agency is getting Derek Favors, obviously, through a trade. I think that's an amazing get. He can come in, help in their young draft picks and be a big presence. And then also JJ Redick, I think, $13 million a year. That's, he could have picked anywhere, and he decided to go to New Orleans for a 3-year deal. I think that shows a lot how much confidence he has. And while they're probably not going to be contenders next year, I think they're definitely going to shake up the West.
That's a very fair point, and obviously there was a lot of turmoil there in New Orleans, but now it's all kind of done. After that round, I think I'm going to go with 2 points to Yousef for his point on how big this Brooklyn turnaround's be, and I think I'm going to go with a point to the Pelicans for Tina, because honestly, a few months ago, I didn't think the Pelicans were going to do anything, let alone get Zion Williamson. So moving on from the hardwood to the grass courts, our yearly visit to the All England Lawn Tennis Club has begun, and the Wimbledon field has already begun to narrow. It has been upset central this year as top seeds like Naomi Osaka, Alexander Zverev, and Stefanos Tsitsipas all fell during first-round matchups. But the most intriguing upset might have been 15-year-old Coco Gauff defeating Venus Williams, becoming the youngest player to win a match at Wimbledon since 1991. Once again, I'll keep it simple for all of you, and I'll start with you, Neel. What's been your biggest surprise and or disappointment 2 days into this tournament?
For me, on the women's side, definitely Naomi Osaka losing in a first-round match a couple of days ago. She has not been the same since she made some changes in her camp, changing up her manager, changing up her agent, making those changes. For me, I think it's a mental issue that she's dealing with right now. She'll be back soon, but for me, her losing in the first round is not characteristic of what we typically see from her. On the men's side, Dominic Thiem and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Dominic Thiem coming off a final appearance at the French Open, losing in 4 sets to Rafael Nadal. I had high expectations for him coming into this Wimbledon draw, but losing in the first round in 5 sets. He did get kind of an unfair draw, drawing Sam Querrey, who's a big 6'6", big hitter, always dangerous on grass, but he should have come out of that match. I should have seen him win in 3 or 4 sets. Dominic Thiem, probably my biggest disappointment so far.
And that makes a lot of sense. But there is a lot of a translation issue between clay and grass. But moving on from there to Tina. Tina, who's your big surprise?
Honestly, I have to give a point to the women this year. I think Wimbledon's been a lot about the young guns, and obviously with Thiem, Tsitsipas, and Zverev all being knocked out at this point, we're really relying on the 3 big guys, obviously Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, to kind of be the headline. I think obviously with their age, that's still something that we can rely upon, but obviously as time goes on and these players get older, we're going to kind of rely on the consistency of younger players to come in and be big names in tennis. And as you see, Serena's kind of backed up the last couple of years. We have some really young talent. I mean, 15-year-old comes in and beats Venus Williams. That's unbelievable. And then you have Ash Barty coming up in the scenes this year. She won the French Open and now has a real opportunity to come in and win a second major. I hope the men can kind of find their pace, because honestly, I hope to think in 5 years we have no one else to talk about beyond the big 3 that we've had for the last 10.
Yousef, real quick, give me your surprise.
Roger Federer dropped his first set since in a first-round match since 2010. So obviously he is a terrific tennis player. He's 3rd all-time and wins after losing the first set. But the fact that it came in this first round match is a little bit surprising. And just a takeaway, kind of like what Tina is saying, the fact that this next generation is hyped, but it's still the old guard. Since 2003, only 4 people have won the Wimbledon championship, and that would be Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, and then Andy Murray. The first 3 guys on that list are still in the picture. So that's my biggest takeaway, the fact that that next generation that's been very hyped has yet to deliver, and we're still looking at the old guard. I expect Djokovic to take it all, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So after that round, I was really thinking about it. I really like the point about what's going on the women's side of the draw. So Tina, you're getting the 2 points there. And Neel, you're right. The depth of what's going on in Osaka's camp is really something to look at. So Neel, you're getting the point there. But moving on from there, the Democratic Party just had their first round of debates. But that's not the election we're talking about today, as Major League Baseball just had their first iteration of their new All-Star voting format. Election Day led to the release of the MLB All-Star rosters over the weekend, and while we could calmly and rationally discuss the merits of each selection, that's no fun. So Tina, we'll start with you here. Who's the biggest snub from the Midsummer Classic?
This one's easy for me. It's Max Muncy. I know the Dodgers have 4 players going in, so obviously people are not really thinking about him, but he's got a .933 OPS. He's one of the top guys in WAR this year. I think, being able to play all 3 infield positions, he's very versatile and has been a big piece for the Dodgers. and to kind of be snubbed is unfortunate. 20 home runs. It happened last year. He had 35 home runs and kind of broke out and made it onto the scene. And I think it's unfortunate. Obviously, it's nice to have a player from each team, but I guess being on the best team in the league sometimes isn't to your benefit in terms of voting for All-Star Weekend.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Muncy is someone that should have made an All-Star roster, but you made a good point about the Dodgers. We'll move on to Yousef from there. Yousef, who do you got?
I've got two guys, Akhil. I've got Luke Voit of the Yankees, a guy. The Yankees are the best team in the AL at this standpoint. He's batting .280, 17 home runs, top 20 in OPS plus. I feel like they got two guys in who are position players in Gary Sanchez and, of course, DJ LeMahieu. I feel like Voit was a deserving candidate as well. And another guy I've got is Max Kepler, 21 home runs on the season. The Twins lead the AL in runs scored, and I think that Kepler is a big factor in that 3 wins above replacement. So I think those are the two guys I would look at in terms of biggest snubs for the All-Star game.
Neel, what about you?
I'm not necessarily a baseball guy, but I gotta agree with Tina here. Max Muncy, second straight year that he wasn't selected to the All-Star game. Top 5 in positional war, but also to throw in another name out there, Manny Machado. As you heard earlier in today's episode of MST, he'd been hot the last month or so. I think he had 10, 11 home runs the past month or so, and I was surprised that he, especially considering the contract he signed this offseason, surprised he didn't make the roster either.
That's a fair point. However, Machado was a case of a little bit too late. So I'm going to give those 2 points to Yousef, and I think I'm going to give the 1 point to Tina. So unfortunately, Neel, you are my elimination today. Sorry, man.
Bye, Neel.
Last words you got before you go?
I got nothing to say. 1-1 now. Next time.
Well, we're now down to 2, and by the end of today, so the Women's World Cup. The United States women's national team has been on a tear after defeating England in their semifinal yesterday, but controversy sprung up again during the match due to their celebrations. Members of the team like Megan Rapinoe have also traded barbs with President Trump throughout the tournament, leading to controversy about player conduct. And with everything that's gone on off the pitch for the women's national team, is winning the tournament the only acceptable result? Tina, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. We have the most funding, we have the best facilities, and honestly, we have the best players. As Ali Krieger put it, we're not just the best team in the World Cup, but we're the second best team in the World Cup. I mean, they go into a quarterfinal game, their star, Megan Rapinoe, doesn't play, and they slot one more player in, and she scores for them to kind of basically seal the game. There's absolutely, since 1999, there's absolutely no excuses for the United States. We have all the funding and all the players in the world to win, and especially with 2 powerhouses like France and Germany out, it would be a major upset in the world if they were not to win this tournament.
Yousef, what about you?
First off, guys, I think it's a little bit unfair that you're pitting me off against a former collegiate and professional player here to talk Women's World Cup. So that aside, I think regardless of what happens in this year's Women's World Cup, I think that the Team USA, their legacy is secure. They play with so much heart, so much passion. Even watching the game against England yesterday, you never felt like it was in doubt. Huge plays by Alex Morgan, of course, Kristen Press, and of course Alyssa Nair with that clutch save. I think that regardless, I think their legacy is secure.
Absolutely. I think that you've made a ton of really good points there. And actually, I really, really like the point about how the way they've played transcends what they've done in this tournament. So Yousef, I think I'm giving you the win here today. So 30 seconds FaceTime, have at it.
Okay, FaceTime. I'm going to give you guys my Terrence Ross take. He signed with the Orlando Magic, re-signed for 4 years, $54 million. Didn't like the signing. I feel like there are enough guys who are in that rotation wing group. You look at guys like Jeremy Lamb, you look at Rodney Hood. Enough of those guys. The way that you handicap yourself in the NBA is by giving average players above average money. I think the Magic did that. They are on a trail to what they've been the past 10 years, which has been the Orlando Magic. Terrence Ross is the biggest embodiment of that.
Well, that is going to do it for us today on Point Taken. Thanks to Neel, Tina, and Yousef for joining me. And thanks as always to everyone behind the scenes who makes this show go. And that's all we have today for Medill Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Boom!